All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Seth Paskin, and I am host for this Best Practices webinar. This is part of our ongoing series. We do these every other week at the same time on this same channel on a variety of topics. We keep the calendar as well as a calendar of future events and past events and recordings on BMC Communities. Just search for Best Practices webinar, and you'll be able to find all that information. This session is being recorded, so if you have any audio issues or if you have to drop or if you have colleagues who would be interested, I will share the recording via that communities event after I get it sorted out. It usually takes me a couple of days to get that done. We're going to go through today TrueSight Capacity Optimization Investigate Tool. Your presenter is Dima.
We'll stick with Dima.
Yes, and there will be plenty of time for question and answers. During the session, I'll have your lines muted, so you please use the Q&A window, and I will keep track of those, and then afterwards we can unmute lines and have verbal questions if desired. And with that, Dima, take it away.
Thank you very much, Seth. I am a lead product developer with a platinum engineering team with BMC Software. I've been with BMC Software for over 20 years, working on capacity-related problems. And today I'm going to talk about a tool that we have called the Investigate tool. As a background, let me talk about how the Investigate tool fits into the, see, I think I scrolled a little too far. Let me just restart. How the Investigate tool fits into the capacity optimization. So what kind of answers does this tool allow you to do? So the capacity planners, they analyze, forecast, and optimize the capacity and the performance down to the process level. And we leverage our capacity agents, which provide high resolution, fault tolerant, and lightweight data collection. And that data is aggregated on the gateway server. So the Investigate tool allows you to leverage the agents, the gateway server, to get really detailed answers that we may not import into the capacity database every single day. So it's a high resolution tool, and it is able to get data from a variety of different sources. So the TrueSight capacity optimization where Investigate plays a part in starts with the capacity agents. So the capacity agents are installed on individual Windows, Linux systems, virtual machines, and they provide near real-time, and aggregated data for what happened in the last day. So there's a local repository that stores exactly what happened for the last several hours on each agent. In addition, each day we roll up the data into persistent storage, transfer it to the gateway server, and then we take a subset of the metrics that we collect, and we use the BMC capacity ETL engine to extract, transfer, and load it into the database. We're able to visualize the data using both the application server and the presentation server to generate charts, graphs, and look at interesting phenomenon. So what exactly is an Investigate tool? It's something we introduced a couple of releases back in 2017. It works with a TrueSight presentation server console. It generates tables and charts, and it answers the following questions. What is happening now at the agents? So you may have spotted a problem, and the problem could be ongoing at this very same, minute, hour, or last hours. What happened earlier today? The last 48 hours of data stored in the agent at various resolutions. What's going on now is stored at, by default, 10 seconds, and what happened the last 8 hours at 5 minutes. And what's happening over the last 48 hours in 15 minutes. These are adjustable defaults. In some cases, we can go down to as low as 1 second resolution for the data that's for the process level data that's taking place. And the tool allows you to do ad hoc troubleshooting on metrics that are not imported into the VIS ETL. So there's a lot of words. So let me just give you an example of what kind of problem that I was able to solve this week. For the data. And one of my colleagues had an issue with one of his servers. So the server was running at 100% CPU utilization. So he wanted to know exactly what was going on. So with the Investigate tool, I was able to see that for some periods of time, the system was actually 100% CPU. So I went from the CPU metric to actually the process level statistic metrics, and I was able to identify what was happening when the system is busy and to actually compare it to times when the system wasn't busy. And that allowed us to isolate the differences between what was causing the system on a lower level to behave in such an unexpected manner. So the Investigate tool architecture, it collects data from two sources. It can go directly to the TrueSight capacity optimization agents, which keep a local cache of data for near real time in high resolution recently and less resolution further away. In addition, the aggregated data that we call the UDR data is stored in resolution in terms of minutes at the gateway server. So the Investigate tool is able to contact the gateway server via web services, SOAP APIs, and it's able to connect to the agents to get real-time data and to review the daily collected data as well. We expose this via the user interfaces, via the TrueSight presentation server using the REST API. And we provide examples of how to access that REST API in some of our knowledge bases, and we actually provide examples of how to talk directly to the gateway server using the command line tools or SOAP APIs as well. But primarily in this talk, we'll talk about how to get value from the Investigate tool using the user interface. So you would log into the TrueSight presentation server and you would create a study. A study allows you to select the agent nodes that you're interested in. Now, the agent nodes could be in terms of the agent that's running or data that the agents have collected previously in a persistent data store. There's two types of agent nodes that could be incorporated into your research. The first one is you have these agent nodes configured via the automation. So every day you're collecting data, you're generating UDR files, and you're transferring those UDR files to the gateway server where they're ETL'd. And in that particular case, those agents will fall under a particular domain. And so you can select a domain from agents that you're collecting every single day and populating to the BCO database. The other ad hoc example is you have an agent deployed, but you're not collecting data from it. It could be something that you're running experiments on, or you're just using it for a different use case. In that particular case, you can still get data from that particular agent by using it in a catalog system. So in a catalog system means that I'm not collecting data for this agent every day, but I still want to use the Investigate tool against it. So once you select your agent, then you're interested. Then you can select a filter. So a filter, we're trying to keep the filters really simple, no fancy SQL queries or anything like that. In terms of in terms of numeric filters, we do things such as give me the top, give me something that's greater than or equal to or less than or not equal to a particular value. In terms of string filters, we do some, we don't do regular expressions, but we do things such as does it contain a particular keyword, does it not contain it, is it equal to, so things that are a little simpler than having to write a SQL statement or a regular expression. So in addition to an individual filter, you can combine filters in an AND. So for example, I'm interested in selecting a process. In this particular case, initially I wanted to select a process that contains the name BGS because our processes have a pattern of BGS, BGS agent, BGS collect, BGS service daemon, and that has a CPU utilization that has greater than 10%. So the 10% that I picked was not a really good number, and I changed that number to actually 1 because the agent is more efficient and it's not going to use 10% in general purpose cases. So I've selected my filter, and in this particular case, I'm going to see all the processes that have BGS, and it has CPU utilization greater than a certain number. And so I select my filter, and using that filter, I get a table, and a table is basically a single data point in time of a value that matches that filter. Once you have a table created, you can pick several entries and you can chart them. In this particular case, I took the BGS processes and I wanted to see how they behaved as a function of time. I can select a series of metrics that I want to see in my chart. A chart will give me information across time. There could be one point in time that is more interesting to me than the rest, and I want to explore what happened in that particular time. So in this particular case, I was drilling down on CPU utilization. I saw that it was at 40% at one particular time. So what I want to do is I want to be able to select that time, and from that time, look at a different metric, in this particular case, process statistic, to give me additional information exactly what happened. So I select that time, I select drill down. The drill down option gives me additional metrics that I want to explore. It gives me the ability to add my filters. In this case, I wanted to look at the top 10% utilization. And lo and behold, the data that I wanted to for a particular time is displayed for me. And that's the use case that I was actually helping my colleague with this week. So this is exactly what I did in terms of how to use the product. I selected CPU utilization, and then I was able to pick a point from it, pick a different metric group, and look at that particular value. So the data, we hide the complexity of getting data from different data sources, whether it's directly from the agent, whether it's direct from the UDR repository. We basically check to see what's available. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to get historical data from the agent. And once you exceed the period where data is available, then we're going to look at the UDR repository on the gateway server to get the data. In addition, you can actually see what the agent is doing right now. That's off by default. If you wanted to get instantaneous updates every, by default, 10 seconds of what's going on in the agent, you would enable auto refresh capability, and that would contact the gateway server via the REST API. And then as the data becomes available on the agents, it would be displayed in your chart. So overall, this is a description of Web Investigate. So I've left us a lot of time to ask any questions or to have an interactive session where we can actually do a real demo of things that you might be interested in. Let me give you some additional links. So this is our product documentation, our YouTube tutorials about this particular feature. In addition, at the very end of the document, when you start using the product, they are going to be additional. I've included some command lines to extract data from the agents to CSV data format, the location of the logs, error codes, and REST API examples. So are there any questions that folks would like to ask me about the product, and then we could spend a lot of time exploring the use cases they may be interested in. So if we can open up the line.
Yep, Dima. So first off, we've got a couple questions in the chat window or the Q&A window, and I will get those first, and then if you would like to ask a question verbally, I can unmute your line. But you need to tell me which phone number you called in on, because that's how it shows up in my listing. So the first question is from Debbie.
Okay.
And Debbie would like to know, is the implementation of Investigate in 11.5 different from earlier versions, and if so, how does it compare?
We haven't changed anything in 11.5. Let's say, except for some minor fixes, it's the same as 11.3.
Okay. And then Daryl asks, can you explain how timestamps are used across regions? So I'm guessing he's asking about how the tool represents timestamps when you're monitoring different assets in different regions.
Yes. So we track everything in terms of Unix time, which is the number of seconds since 1970. So everything that we do and everything that we track is in terms of a general offset, and the values are displayed in the time zone of depending on the UDR data or the agents in their relative time offsets. But it's all, the driver is the last hour and the last several hours are based on the TSPS, TrueSight Presentation Server time zone.
All right. TrueSight Presentation time zone, gotcha, okay. Betty asks, can you view multiple charts for different metrics at the same time?
You can view multiple metrics from the same, as long as they have similar units. For example, the CPU utilization, system time, user time would fit well in the chart, and when you select metrics for the chart, you just bring back that particular slide. That is exactly what we allow you to do. So I think if I go to this particular presentation, that's exactly what happened. We selected a particularly interesting data point, and here you could select any of these metrics that you wanted to. In this case, they only selected CPU utilization, but they could select multiple ones, and they would appear on the same chart.
Okay. All right. And then Jalal asks, is there a PowerShell interface for using the API?
There is no PowerShell interface for using the API, but we provide a tool. You can use the command line. So let me the command line that we have is called General Manager Client. So it's shipped with the product, And at the end of the presentation, I actually give an example of how to extract the general using the gateway server and the general manager client, how to extract UDR data and live data. There's a variety of methods that are available from UDR, agent history, or real-time data. And so there's a couple of examples that I provide exactly of how to get that data from. So all you need to do is you need to install the gateway server on either Unix or Windows machine, and then you can use the executable. In addition, you can use the REST API, and there's some examples that I provide in terms of the REST API endpoints and how to use them, and there's actually a link to the documentation about the RESTful web services and the authentication. So here's a couple of examples of how to do table analysis and how to do chart analysis using the REST API. But initially, the command line is a little bit simpler versus having to create your REST calls. So I would probably start with the SOAP, the general manager client, and then I would, if you're interested in accessing data via the TrueSight presentation server, you can use the REST examples as well. It fits into the following architecture. So we do both. We support both endpoints. Sorry, I'm scrolling a little fast here. So this is the SOAP API is the gateway server API, and then we have the application server has a REST API that we give you access to as well.
Okay, great. Next question is from Daryl. How scalable is it if I had over 10,000 uncatalogued servers?
So you would probably want to spread them out against several gateway servers. So it would depend on how many entities you want to put on a single chart. So I mean, it's I would probably, for 10,000 servers, I would probably spread them up on maybe 2 or 3 gateway servers, just because, and it also depends on how many users you have, but you can scale it out, no problem. You just basically would add gateway servers to meet your user and response time needs.
Okay, great, thank you. Pooja asks, can you show us a demo on how to schedule an ad hoc collection, and also how are workloads created in 11.3?
I can do that. It'll take a little bit of time to do that. That's a little outside of the investigate use case. But to create a workload, you would use the. I can talk through it. It's you would use the Windows Gateway server to create the actual workload, and you would configure your manager runs or agent lists, whether you're using Unix or Windows. And then once you create your workloads, you would need some UDR data for the agent nodes of interest. So you would transfer your UDR nodes to your Windows Gateway server, and then you would create your workload. And then you would copy that workload to, if you're using Unix, to your Unix gateway server and incorporate it into your manager run.
Okay, maybe we could, Pooja, maybe that's a topic we could take back for a video that we could maybe post on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, it's fairly detailed. It probably take, you know, at least a minimum of 5 minutes. You would start your gateway server. There's several pieces that were moving. You know, you'd have your Unix gateway server, Linux gateway server, and building a workload. And we might have some YouTube pictures as well that I can reference after the presentation.
Okay. Great, thank you for that. Brian asks, can the metrics that are available in the process level table be charted? For example, can we chart the RSS value for a particular process over time?
Yes, absolutely. So let me see if I can do that real fast. I think I have a standby instance. So I'm going to just create an investigate study. I am going to select, I'll select the process statistics. And so I'm going to get a table of, I may have picked a bad one. Okay, so, and I'm going to pick, what is it, RSS we're interested in? So I'm going to view a chart of that RSS, the RSS, and RSS. And so I was able to select a particular chart that's going to be a function of time for my entry of interest. Does that answer the question?
Let's see, where did the question go? So Brian, I don't know where you are, but hopefully that answers the question. And you can always come back. Yes, it did. Thank you.
Oh, okay, no problem. Excellent.
All right. Okay, I'm going to circle back to a couple previous questions in just a minute, but to get some clarity. Jalal asks, how much historical data is stored on the local agent and in what granularity?
By default, we store 1 hour at 10-second resolution, 8 hours at 5-minute resolution, and 48 hours at 15-minute resolution. And that is configurable. You can go down to 1 second if you wanted to, not as a general. If you wanted to get some really detailed data, you were running some performance tests. So it is configurable, but you probably don't want to, get too crazy and store, days worth of 1 second data. So we don't limit you in what you can support, and we do support big file sizes. So you're constrained by your file system and the amount of memory you have in your system in terms of how much agent history you want to capture in release 11.3 or higher.
What were the defaults again?
The defaults are 10 seconds for the last hour, 5 minutes for the last 8 hours, and 15 minutes for the last 48 hours.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we also have a couple of other questions here. Are there plans to adopt additional metric groups available in Investigate to VIS UDR data collections? For example, TCP statistics are useful for assessing demand level changes on a server, much like CPU memory, etc.
Yes, we always take new metrics and add them to the agent, under consideration of how hard it is to get, what performance is, so that we're adding new metrics a lot of the time. And so that's one of the advantages of Investigate. Only a subset of metrics are imported into a VIS file, and a subset of those metrics are imported into the BCO via the ETL. So Investigate lets you see any metric that the agent has been configured to collect, and so it allows you to look at things that we don't import in the rest of the product to provide additional details in terms of resolution and in terms of metrics. But so if there's something you want to see, you want to either contact support to create an RFE or create an idea to get additional feedback from other users who may want this functionality. And so the more popular something is, the more likelihood there is that it's going to get prioritized and released sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you. That's true for any feature request too. What ports need to be open between the agent and the gateway console to view metrics dynamically?
So the ports that need to be, so everything works from the gateway server. So as long as the gateway server can talk to the agents, it only needs to be a one-way communication from the gateway server to the agent. So For UDR data, it's primarily port 10128, which is a default service daemon port. And for charts and drill downs, it's port 6767, which is the default agent port.
Okay, thank you. Can you view the total CPU utilization on a Windows server, not per CPU, but total?
So the Investigate tool does not summarize the data, so you'd have to you couldn't see the aggregation.
Okay. Let me just scroll through here. Tom asks, do the CSV exports include all the metrics seen, even if they're not persisted?
Yes. So you could see data from. So you would see anything that is available in UDR or in the agent. So there's no limit to it. So the way that history works is you can't selectively choose an individual metric for collection. So either you would get all of the metrics in a metric group or none of them. And so you select what you want to collect for your daily UDR data, and you actually do the same thing for history. And the mechanism that controls that is the repository.cfg file that's deployed on every single agent. So if you wanted to change the defaults, that's where you would go to enable things.
Okay. All right. So I want to circle back to Daryl's question about time. He added a clarification. He said, if we're using the epoch time and my server is in GMT, but the target is in EST, will there be an issue as the epoch time is ahead?
So it depends what you're looking at. If you're looking at the agent data, either history or real time, then you'll get the current timestamp. Now it gets a little different when you're actually looking at the UDR data, because you could be looking at, it depends how you structured your run. So you may not be able to see your latest, greatest time points depending on whether the data was, whether your gateway servers are ahead or behind of the agents that you're collecting. But we do have the ability to specify that you collect in an alternate time zone. So it would depend on how you've set up your collection. But in general, if you're leveraging agent history, which is the first thing we do, you should be able to see what's happening on your system for the last, hour or more. It's only when you start looking at the UDR data that you may have either be ahead or behind on what you're looking at.
Okay. So he adds a further clarification that it was related to the REST APIs and real time. I'm wondering if maybe we should follow up on that one so we don't get too far in the weeds on it. So we've got a few more questions.
Yeah, for the SOAP API, you just specify it in terms of the Unix time.
Okay.
So there's no GMT offsets.
So Daryl, we'll get back with you after this just to get clarification, make sure you get answered. Okay, we've got a couple more questions, so if you can hang on the line. Mm-hmm. Steve asks, you mentioned managed versus non-managed nodes at the beginning. Can whether a non-managed node be used in Investigate still results in consumption of a managed asset license?
It's a little different. We track the on-catalog different than the catalogs. So they're stored in different tables. So I'm not exactly an expert in that area, but I think that it would be reflected in the license model in order to capture the on-catalog, but additional things would have to be performed in order to do that. Because the things that you collect every day, if you collect for a single day, you still get charged for that particular license. On-catalog is a little different. I think it's more of instantaneous of what's happening at one particular time. So that's the only thing you could really track. So it's a little different tracking mechanism. we are supposed to be tracking it, but I don't know what the official party line is around catalog versus uncatalogued.
Okay. All right. Steve, maybe we can follow up on that one as well, because it looks like Debbie's got some licensing, wants some more information about that as well. So I'll follow up and add the licensing stuff to the response posting when we post the recording. Brian has a question. Can we choose multiple servers and chart one chosen metric on the same chart? For example, can we choose the CPU utilization values for 3 servers and chart their usage together?
Yes. So let me just show you that. Let's see. I'm gonna select, I believe, a couple of systems. Maybe I got too ambitious, but all right, I'll select 3. And then I'm going to pick something really simple like system statistics. And I'm going to select multiple entities for these nodes, and I'm going to chart them together. So the answer is that it is possible to combine multiple nodes in a single chart. I think one of these nodes is not responsive in this environment for whatever reason. Okay, so 2 came back. So I'm going to select 2, and then I'm going to just chart them together. CPU utilization, popular one. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other written questions. So, wait.
Okay.
So, wait, Debbie says they still have the question about multiple charts. Let me scroll up and see if I can figure out. So, Debbie's saying, I guess I misinterpreted the original question. Let me find the original question and figure out what. Can you view, Betty asked, can you view multiple charts for different metrics at the same time? And then you answered it, and Debbie came back and said, I think the question is, can you have multiple charts displayed simultaneously? So does that?
So we display, we display one chart at a time. So unless you had different like windows and stuff, you couldn't like put one on top of the other. So it's one at a time.
Okay. So in other words, you couldn't have a single quote unquote dashboard, investigate dashboard with multiple charts.
Yes.
Gotcha. Well, Debbie's disagreeing with you about the Windows version.
Well, this is just the Web Investigator. In the Windows one, you could do that. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Sorry. I'm doing a terrible job of interpreting here for her, so I apologize for that, Debbie. But hopefully that answers the question. For the Investigate tool, it's a single chart at a time. And so, Pooja's asking about the ad hoc scheduling and ad hoc collection. Is that something you can show here? I mentioned that we were going to follow up on that, but.
Well, so the ad hoc scheduling and collection, is that, so I guess I would need more information. So that's probably something that may be a question for support, and they could point you to the knowledge base, because we have some lovely knowledge bases. Because it's so the first thing is a gateway server on Linux or Windows that you're trying to do this on, and if it's Windows and all your UDR data is there, it makes the job a lot easier. So that's more of a function of analyzing what you're trying to accomplish. So I think we need more information. So there's not a single answer, and I believe there are. We could definitely point you to some KAs and maybe even a YouTube video on some of the usual use cases for that.
Okay, so I've got that in my follow-up.
Okay.
So Jeff Jenkins asks, how would you look at data for a server that is not listed in the environment? We have a test environment with a limited number of servers, and I would like to see data on a server running in our prod environment. His test is upgraded to 11.3, but prod is still at 10.7. Is that possible?
So the first thing you have to add it is to the unmanaged list on the gateway server, and then once you have that entity in the uncataloged list, I'm sorry, not unmanaged, but uncataloged, then you'd be able to connect to that particular, you'd create a study, and then you'd be able to connect to that thing, and you should see the node that you're interested in the uncatalogued thing. So, but the first course of action is to actually go to your gateway manager console and then add the nodes that you're interested in into the uncatalogued list. And so by adding them into the uncatalogued list, it's not like they're going to be incorporated in anything in the daily collection. It's just a matter of letting the Investigate tool know about them. So that'd be the workflow.
Okay. All right, so we've got another ad hoc collection question, and I'm feeling maybe I want to take that offline as a separate topic only because we're already 10 minutes over. Yeah,
so I mean the ad hoc collection is so I'll just do it real fast from the Windows GUI. So you would click on the collect data tab, and then you would you would select your node, and you would select the time period that you're interested in and where you want the data to be. And then so you would schedule the collection, the UDR data would be generated. And then you would, from that UDR data, you would go into the Analyze tool, you would use that data to create a workload, and then you would incorporate that workload into your automation file. Or you could, if you wanted to have it be part of your daily automation, or you would, once you have the UDR data, you could just perform, use Analyze to build workloads and perform the ad hoc use case. But it's a little different workflow than Investigate.
Yeah, I feel like that feels like another topic for me. I'm going to make a note that we should maybe just dedicate one of these sessions to ad hoc collections, or maybe put together a video or something like that instead, and make sure we send it out to everybody. Okay. But let me do this. So I'm not seeing any new questions in the chat window. I'm really appreciative of the engagement. Thank you, Dima, for a great presentation. Thank you, everybody, for the engagement. I'm going to tell you I've got 4 takeaways. So I'll when I update the communities event with the presentation and the recording. There was an ask about YouTube videos, which I will link to there. We have an open question about licensing. Where's the documentation for licensing? We have the open issue about doing a session on ad hoc collection and workloads in 11.3, and then understanding the time zone differences for the way that the epoch time works in the presentation server versus the API for different types of activities. So we'll try to follow up on all of those topics. Everybody really appreciate it. My capacity folks are always the most educated, engaged, and detailed users of our products, so we really appreciate that. As I said, it'll take me a couple days to get the event updated, and just keep an eye out if you're already signed up to follow that event. You'll get notified when I do. And if not, feel free to reach out to me directly via email, and I'll be happy to do that. All right, with that, I'm going to pull it to a close. Dima, thank you so much. Any last words?
Well, thank you for attending, and we really appreciate the engagement with the customers. So that's how we make the product better.
Yep. Thank you so much. Great session. All right. Have a great week, everybody.